Hey, it's Jeff Walker. I'm the creator of the Product Launch Formula, and for 10 years, I've been teaching thousands of entrepreneurs how to start and grow their businesses. And I've got an amazing training video for you. So this is the deal. The Product Launch Phenomena has completely changed the online business world. And it's no wonder. If you look at the way Apple releases their products, or how Hollywood opens their movies, or how the video game industry launches their games, they use a structured sequence product launch that gets people lining up to buy their product before it's even released. That's because these launches get you big-time momentum and sales right from the start. But it's not just for big companies. The formula works just as well for small businesses, tiny micro businesses, and regular people like you and me. People who start small and have an appetite to grow. That's what this video is about, bringing that kind of marketing firepower to our kinds of businesses. However, I've got a warning for you. This is a dense video. There are no cats or puppies in it. Well, actually, there might be one puppy. But I've got a lot of ground to cover and I need to move quickly. So get ready to take lots of notes. There's a PDF on this page that you can download and print it out, and that'll help you follow along. I'm going to show you stuff like the product launch phenomena and why it's changed online marketing and what that means for your business. The one core strategy that drives the most successful launches and how you can drop that strategy into your launch. The 2 non-starters and the 4 freedoms that will make all the difference in your business. And the 6 mental triggers that will make your launch irresistible. And then the 3 primary types of launches and which one you should use first. And you're gonna love this. I'm also gonna give you a peek behind the scenes, take you there for a look into how real people are doing these launches to build real businesses.
It was like all of a sudden discovering oxygen.
It gave me my passion back.
Things started to change in a really different way.
It was insane, and you know, we really came to life.
It's like, what can I do next? It makes you think, what can I launch next? It makes you think in a whole new way.
The fact of the matter is that Product Launch Formula works. It just really works.
How do you take what you love to do, your passion, your profession, even your hobby, and turn it into an online business that makes you a great income, creates real value in the world, and gives you the freedom to work when you want, how much you want, and that you can run from anywhere in the world? A business that makes money for you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. How do you start a business like that? Or if you've already got an online business, how do you grow that business fast? The goal of this training is to show you the critical things you need to launch a 6-figure or even a 7-figure business online, and do it in a way that gives you a lifestyle that you want, that makes a positive impact on other people's lives. And by the way, how do you do it without being hypey or slimy or scammy? And yes, you really can do it in a way that will make your mom and your friends proud of you. In this first video, I'm going to focus on the one core strategy behind how the most successful entrepreneurs launch their businesses and products online. And this strategy is going to work for you whether you've got an online business already or whether you're just starting out. Now, you've probably heard success stories about people making all kinds of money in their online business. And those stories are out there and many of them are true. But I need to warn you, this training is not about get rich quick. It's not about some trick to get your website to the top of Google, or some magic software, or some way to get lots of people following you in social media. It's about a real world formula that definitely works and has been proven over and over in the real world by real people with a crazy variety of products and services. Now, I want to emphasize this. What I'm going to teach you is not theory. It's been proven again and again by myself, and more importantly, by thousands of my students. Over the last 10 years, my students have done well over $500 million in sales, and just about every type of online business, and in hundreds of different markets and niches, and literally all over the world. Lots of times, when you hear about people with online businesses, you hear about all the money they're making. And I have to tell you, it can be pretty awesome. But for me, it comes down to one word: freedom. First, you have true time freedom. The internet doesn't open or close, so you can work when you want. Of course, you still have to put in the work, but the flexibility is amazing. I get up when I want in the morning, and I work when I want to work. And when you sell products online, especially digital products, you get true time leverage. By this, I mean you disconnect your income from the amount of time that you work. You can make more money without working more hours. You also have location freedom. You can work anywhere, and you can even live anywhere you want. And your clients, they're not limited by your location. I run my multi-million-dollar business out of a small town in the mountains of Colorado. This is my dream hometown, and I love what I do, and I still get to have all these crazy outdoor adventures like mountain biking and skiing and hiking and whitewater kayaking. and I still get to have clients from around the world. You also get the freedom of who you work with. You no longer have to work with a grumpy boss or unreasonable clients. When you attract the right clients, your life gets a lot more enjoyable. Some of my clients have become great friends, and I've also had the honor to hang out with, coach, and even play with some amazing people like Paulo Coelho, Sir Richard Branson, and Tony Robbins. And finally, you get the ultimate freedom, the freedom of purpose. You get to do the work that you love and the work that you're born to do. For me, my life is now about making the maximum positive impact I can, and I love what I do. So I've got 4 videos for you. In this first training video, I'll walk you through how to launch your business or your product. And what I'm about to teach you is the core strategy behind my product launch formula. But before we go any further, I need to warn you about 2 things that could hold you back as you go through this training. Either of these 2 things could stop you dead in your tracks. The first is the thought of, I knew that. Oftentimes we blind ourselves by assuming we already know something or we've already seen it before. Don't do that. I'm sure you've seen people using my technique because I have students using my formula in just about every market you can imagine. But it's one thing to be an outside observer and try to reverse engineer a process, and it's another thing to get a look behind the scenes. I'm going to show you how and why it actually works. The second thing that will hold you back is the thought of, I disagree. And I know it's easy to go there, and I'll admit that some of the things I'm going to teach you, that while they might seem counterintuitive or even strange, but I think that will all start to make sense for you pretty quickly. And again, this comes from experience. I don't want to scare you off with some big numbers, but I've personally run dozens of launches, and I've had 17 launches that did $1 million or more in sales. Okay, now I know I've thrown some really big numbers out there, but that's not how I got started. In fact, it's hard for me to imagine more humble beginnings. I remember like it was yesterday. I looked out the window and I saw my wife Mary drive up. That was strange because it was the middle of the workday. I knew something was wrong. Mary walked through the door and I could tell she was upset, that she'd been crying. At the time, I was a stay-at-home dad taking care of our 2 small kids, Daniel and Joan. Mary had a job and she was supporting the family. She was the sole breadwinner. There wasn't much money to go around, and we were basically living from paycheck to paycheck. And now Mary stood in front of me crying. She told me she couldn't take it any longer. The pressure was just too much. She was getting up in the dark to go to work, coming home in the dark, barely seeing the family. She wanted more time with our kids. The pressure was just too great to be the sole provider for our family. It was just too much. She needed help from me. She needed a change. And she begged me to find some way to help support the family. I didn't know what to say. Years earlier, I tried the corporate world and it just didn't work out so well. I was like a round peg in a square hole. And I left my corporate job feeling like a complete failure. In fact, I basically quit just before they could fire me. But now my wife was standing in front of me in tears, begging me to help support the family in some way. This was one of the lowest moments of my life. I was already a corporate failure, and now I was failing as a father, as a husband, and as a provider. At that moment, I made a promise to myself that my life and my family's life was going to change. I didn't know how, but I was going to find a way. And shortly after that was when I had this idea to start publishing an email newsletter. This was way back in 1996, and the internet was really just getting started. At that time, I'd been studying the stock market very, very closely for years, so I decided my newsletter would be about investing in the stock market. It was August 30th, 1996 when I sent that first email newsletter. It was a free newsletter, and I sent it to all my friends that I knew. Of course, back then, not everyone had an email address. The funny thing is, nowadays, I often have people ask me about getting started, especially when they have no contacts or following or email list, or they're not a recognized expert. Well, this is what I tell them. When I sent that first newsletter, I had 0 credentials. I had no letters after my name. I wasn't a stockbroker or a registered investment advisor. The only credentials I had was that I'd been home taking care of my kids and making peanut butter sandwiches. But there's this magical thing that happens, and this is one of my first critical lessons. When you start publishing, people instantly start to look at you as an expert. It's pretty amazing, but it's true. And as far as having a list, I had 19 emails on my list for that first newsletter. And one of them was my wife's email address, and one was my second email address. The thing I've learned since then is that everything and everyone has a start, and it's usually very, very humble. Nowadays, with social media and with everyone connected all the time, it's so much easier to build a following. Just about anyone can do it. You just have to decide to get started. In any case, soon I was getting subscribers just through word of mouth. Back then I couldn't afford a domain name or web hosting, but there's this place that offered a free website. So I figured out how to put up a very basic website. You know, I have to laugh at what that site looked like. It was just really, really ugly. I mean, nowadays there's amazing tools so anyone could build a good looking website in minutes. But back then it was like rocket science to me. I wasn't a programmer. I didn't have any tech skills whatsoever. So in a few months, I had several hundred people on my list. I wasn't making any money yet since it was a free newsletter, but I started to think that maybe I could sell something to my readers. So I came up with a plan for a paid version of my newsletter. This would be my first product. The big problem was that I didn't know how to sell. I'd never been a salesman. I knew nothing about marketing or sales, and I certainly didn't know anything about selling online. This was 1996, and almost no one was selling anything online or on the internet at that time. So I also had another problem. The idea of selling just really creeped me out. I wanted to treat my subscribers well. I thought of them as friends. In fact, a lot of them were friends. And I was scared to ask them for the sale. I was scared to ask for the order. I didn't want to seem slimy or act like a used car salesman. But here's the thing. I had to take action. I promised myself that things were going to change. And I knew that people were getting real value from my newsletter. They wrote back and they told me how valuable it was. And I knew my paid newsletter would help them even more. So that's when I came up with the idea that made all the difference. And I didn't know it at the time, but eventually that idea would completely change the course of online marketing. This is the idea. I decided that before I ever asked for the sale, I would deliver huge value. I would send my readers a sequence of really valuable content, and that content would naturally lead into the sale. And I would turn my launch into an event, sort of the way they do in the movie business. So that's exactly what I did. And then the big day came, and I gathered up all of my courage, all the courage I had, and I pushed the send button on my first launch. You know, it's funny now, but at the time I had a hard time believing someone would actually pay me for something that I created. But I didn't have to wait too long. I can still remember the moment that first order came in. I literally jumped out of my chair. I jumped so high it felt like I almost punched a hole in the ceiling. My life changed in that moment. I had just stepped on board the success train. What I know now, and this is really important, after helping thousands of entrepreneurs start their online businesses and thousands more quickly grow the businesses they already had, is that it's the first dollar that's the hardest. And it's also the most important because it puts you in the game. So that first launch ended up at $1,650 in sales. That was huge for me. It was an amazing boost for my family's budget. And I had this thought go through my head, and it's one of the most important thoughts I ever had. I thought to myself, if I just made $1,650, I can do that again, and again, and again, and I might even get better at it. Well, that's exactly what happened. A few months later, I did another launch. I took what I learned the first time and I made a few changes.